Usually, when you think about signing a contract, right? Like, say you're buying a new car or you're finally closing on a house.
Right, yeah, a big purchase.
Exactly. There's this definite expectation of, finality. You sign the paper, the agent hands over the keys, and the transaction is just over.
Yeah, you file the paperwork away in a drawer somewhere.
Right. You put it in a drawer and move on with your life. It's clean. But imagine if signing that document didn't just give you a set of keys, but it actually teleported you.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, like instantly. To an entirely different country, a place with a totally foreign language, a completely different economy, new laws, and a new ruler.
That's a wild thought.
It changes everything, right?
Yeah.
Suddenly, that piece of paper is no longer just a transaction. It's this total reality-altering relocation. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really tearing down this checklist version of modern religion.
Yeah, we really are.
We're uncovering why the whole concept of salvation was, well, it was never meant to be a simple fire escape for the afterlife.
It's such a fascinating framework to explore.
Yeah.
Because when you approach the source material from that angle, you realize that reducing salvation to a localized one-time event, it essentially strips the concept of its original power.
Right, it waters it down.
Exactly. The historical and scriptural texts present something much closer to that teleportation analogy you just described. I mean, your entire context gets rewritten.
And before we get into the actual mechanics of how that rewrite happens, I really need to formally introduce the author and researcher behind today's content.
Yes, absolutely.
Pastor Adrian Swanpoel is the mind guiding this deep dive today. He leads God's Not Done ministry.
And a lot of people probably know his highly engaging content over on TikTok, too.
Oh, for sure. Under the handle Adrien Swansea. And actually, right out of the gate, I want to deliver a direct message to you, the listener. Pastor Adrian Swanpoel sends his warm love in regards to every single one of you tuning in right now.
That's so great. You can really feel that pastoral warmth running throughout all of his notes.
You really can.
And, to set the stage for our discussion today, I think we should introduce Pastor Adrian's favorite slogan, because it perfectly captures the underlying thesis of this entire deep dive.
Oh, definitely. Let's hear it.
God has the final say and the last move.
God has the final say and the last move. I love that.
Yeah, it's power.
It implies action, it implies this ongoing dynamic. So let's unpack this. Pastor Adrian's Wednesday night foundational teaching challenges this modern sanitized view of faith. If salvation isn't just a transactional piece of paper, what exactly is it?
Well, the best place to start is with the specific vocabulary used in the ancient texts. Pastor Adrian points us to Colossians chapter 1, verses 13 and 14.
Okay.
And there is a core concept here that completely dismantles the transactional view. The author of Colossians writes that God has delivered people from the power of darkness and conveyed them into the kingdom of the Son.
Convey. I mean, we really don't use that word much anymore.
Not really, no.
Unless we're talking about, like, a conveyor belt at an airport luggage claim or a grocery store checkout line.
Let's pull that thread, though, because the mechanics of a conveyor belt actually illustrate the Greek word perfectly.
Oh, really?
Yeah. What does a conveyor belt do? It physically picks an object up from point A and forcibly transfers it to point B.
It relocates it.
Exactly. It relocates it. Pastor Adrian's research argues that God doesn't just, stamp your spiritual passport with a forgiven visa and then leave you standing in the exact same spot.
He picks you up and moves you across a border.
Yes. So it literally is like waking up and packing your bags. You have a new address.
Yeah.
You operate under a new economy.
So you aren't just carrying around a get-out-of-jail-free card in your wallet while continuing to live in your old neighborhood.
Right. Think about the psychological impact of moving to a foreign country. Your old currency is suddenly worthless.
Oh, man. Yeah.
The social customs you always relied on, they just no longer apply. Pastor Adrian connects this deeply to John chapter 3, verse 3, where the concept of being born again comes into play.
So it's not just a club membership.
No, not at all. You don't just sign a card. Your lineage, your spiritual DNA, your entire cultural slate gets wiped clean. You start over in a totally new family.
But, learning a new culture implies you need to understand the ruler of that culture, right?
Naturally.
If we're packing our bags and moving into a brand new kingdom, the nature of the king who runs the place is going to dictate everything about our daily lives.
Yes.
And Pastor Adrian's notes actually dig into the Hebraic roots of the king's name, which I found incredibly compelling.
The linguistic history reveals so much about the intent behind the text here. In its Hebraic context, the name Jesus is Yeshua.
Yeshua.
Right. And Yeshua translates directly to he saves, or simply salvation.
So when the angel speaks to Joseph in Matthew chapter 1 saying, you shall call his name Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins, it's not just some generic instruction.
No, it's a massive Hebrew wordplay.
The name is the mission.
That's exactly the point the source material makes. Salvation isn't just an activity this king participates in. It is his fundamental nature.
Wow.
And to understand what that meant practically, we have to look at the historical context of the first century people who are actually following him around.
Okay, set the scene for us.
Think about the word Hosana. Today, you hear it sung in modern worship settings as a general term of praise, right? Almost interchangeable with hallelujah.
Right, it sounds very triumphant and polished today, like a happy song.
Exactly. But in the first century context, under the crushing weight of the Roman Empire, crying out, Hosanna literally meant save now.
Save now.
Yeah, it was a visceral, desperate cry for immediate deliverance. These were people facing heavy taxation, physical brutality, systemic oppression.
It was life or death.
Right. So when they yelled Hosanna, they were demanding an immediate rescue operation from their earthly bondage.
Okay, I have to stop you there and push back on this timeline a bit, because this reveals a massive disconnect.
How so?
Well, if the people walking those dusty first-century roads were looking for immediate, right-now deliverance, how in the world did modern believers turn salvation into this rigid, sterile formula that almost exclusively focuses on what happens after you die?
That is the million-dollar question.
Like, how did the church lose the now of it all?
It's critical. Historically, as the early church moved from being a persecuted minority to an institutionalized religion, especially post-Constantine, the radical, dangerous idea of an immediate rival kingdom became very difficult to manage.
Because institutions prefer checklists.
Exactly. They prefer manageable formulas. Over centuries, human nature slowly traded the messy, demanding reality of a present-day relocation for the comfort of, well, a future afterlife insurance policy.
Because an insurance policy doesn't require me to change how I live my life on a random Tuesday afternoon.
Right.
It just requires me to pay my premium and wait.
Precisely. And Pastor Adrian's teaching identifies this phenomenon as the hypocrisy gap.
The hypocrisy gap.
Yeah. When you strip away the immediate, reality-altering power of a new kingdom, you're just left with a step-by-step checklist. Say a specific prayer. Believe a specific set of historical facts. Get water baptized.
Now, to be fair to the source material, Pastor Adrian does acknowledge that prayers and baptism matter, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But his argument is that those things are just the expressions of the reality. They aren't the substance itself.
Yes, the distinction God's Not Done ministry makes here is very sharp. The substance of salvation isn't a process. It's a person. The notes reference 1 John chapter 5, verses 11 and 12, which says, he who has the Son has life. He who does not have the Son of God does not have life.
It's that straightforward.
Right. You don't have salvation as some separate little shiny object sitting on your mantle. If you don't have the king, you don't have salvation. You just have a religion.
And as you said earlier, religion loves a checklist.
It really does.
It makes me think of the ultimate checklist guy in the historical text, the Apostle Paul.
Oh, yes. So.
Right. Before his massive paradigm shift, he went by Saul, and he was essentially the CEO of religious checklists.
He really was.
As a Pharisee, he kept the law flawlessly. He prayed at all the right times. I mean, he ties down to the last mint leaf in his garden. If there was a religious credit score, Saul's was 850.
He had absolutely maximized the formula. He possessed all the social and political capital a religious person could possibly have in that era.
Right.
But the teaching highlights that Saul to Paul shift on the Damascus Road. He has this blinding encounter with the new king. And what happens? He doesn't just take his impressive religious resume and, like, pencil Jesus in at the bottom as a nice little bonus.
No, he shreds the resume entirely. In Philippians chapter 3, he explicitly writes that he considers all of those previous religious achievements as absolute garbage compared to knowing Christ.
Yeah, garbage.
He had to die to his religion. And that is a terrifying concept for a lot of people today.
It is.
The argument here is that salvation isn't adding Jesus to your current life to make it a little more peaceful. It's exchanging your life for his.
That phrase right there, exchanging your life,
Yeah.
is really the crux of the entire deep dive.
Yeah.
Because when human nature resists that radical life exchange, and we regress to treating salvation merely as a formula or a past event, we create a very dangerous psychological reality for people.
The notes call out the frightening consequences of this regression. You end up with an entire culture of people walking around with false assurance.
Yeah.
We all know the stereotype, right? Someone prayed a specific prayer at a summer youth camp when they were 12.
Oh, yeah.
But now, decades later, their life shows absolutely no fruit. There's no desire for anything spiritual, no change in how they treat people, no evidence of kingdom citizenship at all.
Right.
But they believe they're completely safe because they recited the magic words once upon a time.
Pastor Adrian points to a highly sobering warning from the text itself regarding this. In Matthew chapter 7, verse 21, Jesus says, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' shall enter the kingdom of heaven."
Wow.
Yeah. A verbal checklist does not equal a relocated life. The discrepancy between what people claim and how they actually live is that exact hypocrisy gap we mentioned.
Let me try to contextualize this with an analogy. Treating salvation as a past, one-time event, it's kind of like having a beautiful, really expensive wedding ceremony.
Okay.
You frame your marriage certificate, you hang it proudly in the center of your living room wall, and then you never, ever speak to your spouse again.
That is, wow. Let's push that analogy further, actually, because the mechanism of a stagnant marriage perfectly mirrors Pastor Adrian's point.
Right.
What happens when you just stare at the certificate on the wall? The relationship atrophies.
He dies.
You don't learn your partner's daily habits. You don't share their financial burdens. You don't grow intimately. Eventually, you're just two complete strangers who happen to be legally bound together.
Just roommates with a contract.
Exactly. That is legal standing with zero relational intimacy.
You can point at the certificate all day long to anyone who visits your house and say, look, I'm married, I did the ceremony, but you don't really have a marriage. You have a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And the real tragedy is you're missing out on all the actual benefits of companionship.
And what's the result for a person who lives with the framed certificate, but no relationship? The teaching notes observe that this mindset stunts growth entirely.
Oh, for sure.
It turns believers into perpetual spiritual infants, because a maturity requires daily friction and interaction with the king of this new kingdom.
Right.
Without that daily surrender, you end up with a version of Christianity that is powerless, joyless, and fundamentally indistinguishable from the surrounding culture.
So how do we fix it? If salvation isn't just sitting in a waiting room, clutching a golden ticket and waiting for the afterlife to start, what are the citizens of this new kingdom supposed to be doing on a Tuesday morning?
Well, this brings us to what Pastor Adrian identifies as the buried nugget in the book of Ephesians.
The buried nugget.
Yeah. He points us to Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 through 10. Now, verses 8 and 9 are heavily quoted in modern religion. "For by grace you have been saved through faith, not of works, lest anyone should boast."
Right. That is the ultimate anti-checklist verse. It reinforces that you can't just earn your way across the border.
Correct. But the problem is people usually stop reading right there.
They don't read the next verse.
Right. Pastor Adrian argues that verse 10 is where the actual daily application lives. It says, "For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them."
Oh, wow. Okay, so the text is saying we are saved by grace, but we are saved for good works.
Exactly.
We aren't just refugees given asylum. We are literally drafted into a kingdom purpose.
You didn't just escape the kingdom of darkness. You were recruited by the kingdom of light. You have a new king, yes, but you also have new assignments. The core concept here is that you were saved to serve.
Okay, but stepping into those daily assignments requires a massive psychological shift. Pastor Adrian Swanpoel provides a really sharp practical challenge here.
He really does.
He argues that believers need to completely abandon the phrase, "a sinner saved by grace."
Which is a deeply entrenched, highly popular phrase in almost every religious circle.
It is, and I have to admit, I struggle with this one a bit.
Really? Why is that?
Well, calling myself a saint just feels incredibly arrogant. Like, if I lose my temper and yell at someone in traffic on my way to work, I certainly do not feel like a saint.
Right.
Doesn't Pastor Adrian's material risk making people overly prideful by giving them a title when their daily behavior often proves otherwise?
This is a valid pushback, definitely. Yeah. But we have to look at the psychology of identity here, specifically labeling theory.
Okay.
Pastor Adrian draws on 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 2, where the biblical text explicitly addresses the readers as saints, despite their many documented flaws.
Right, the church in Corinth was a mess.
A total mess. But why call them saints? Because identifying as a sinner constantly tied your brain back to your past failures. It acts as a built-in excuse.
Oh, I see.
If your primary label is sinner, then feeling in traffic is just you living up to expectations. It anchors you to the old kingdom.
Ah, so it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes.
If I tell myself I'm just a mess who occasionally gets grace, I don't really have to take responsibility for my daily actions.
Exactly the point.
Hmm.
But identifying as a saint isn't about arrogance. It's about agreeing with your new legal and relational reality. It roots you firmly in the new grace.
That makes a lot of sense.
If you wake up believing your primary identity is saint, a citizen who has been successfully conveyed and relocated, you will actively look for the good works you were created to do. The label demands a higher standard of living.
That reframing changes everything. And speaking of waking up, Pastor Adrian's notes provide a brilliant, highly practical daily routine to enforce this identity.
Yes, I love this part.
The challenge is this. Before you even roll out of bed, before you reach over to grab your phone and scroll social media, you verbally acknowledge your king. You simply say, I am in your kingdom today. What do you want me to do?
And the psychology behind avoiding the phone first thing in the morning is so crucial here.
Why is that?
Because when you immediately check social media or the news, you are instantly wiring your brain to the anxieties, the comparisons, and the metrics of the old kingdom.
You're basically checking the weather in a country you don't even live in anymore.
What a profound way to look at it.
Yeah.
Yes. By pausing to verbally confirm your new address and ask for your daily assignment, you're establishing jurisdiction right away.
Wow.
Imagine the compounding effect over years of starting every single day by closing that hypocrisy gap. It moves your faith from a framed piece of paper on the wall to a dynamic, living, breathing relationship.
As we look at the overarching theme of this deep dive, the ultimate comfort Pastor Adrian draws from these ancient texts is just incredibly reassuring.
It really is.
His reading of the text shows a creator who isn't standing over you with a clipboard, angry that you haven't checked enough boxes. He literally moved heaven and earth to transfer you.
If you take away anything from the source material today, let it be the concept of rest. Pastor Adrian's framework argues that if you have been carrying the exhausting, crushing guilt of trying to earn an identity that was already freely given to you, you can finally put the checklist down.
Put it down.
You're already in the kingdom.
And if you've been living as though you're still trapped under the jurisdiction of the old kingdom, still chained to fear, still anchored to addiction, still repeating those old cyclical habits, the text says you have been delivered.
Yes.
The power of darkness no longer has any legal authority over you. You simply don't live there anymore. Salvation is a present king and a future glory.
This approach is exactly what makes the teachings at God's Not Done One ministry so impactful. Pastor Adrian Swanpoel has this unique ability to pull these complex, ancient theological frameworks right into the messy reality of our modern living rooms.
He really does. I'm so glad we got to dig into this specific teaching from him and, his TikTok platform, Adrien Swansea.
Me too.
And of course, as we summarize the heart of his message, we have to remind you one more time of that powerful slogan that anchors all of this theology. God has the final say and the last move.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a provocative thought to mull over today. Something that really builds on this idea of relocation.
Okay, let's hear it.
If you truly are a citizen of this entirely new kingdom with a new king, what does that mean for how you view your earthly citizenships and political allegiances today? Are you fiercely defending the borders and politics of your earthly nation while treating your spiritual eternal kingdom as just a weekend vacation destination?
Man, that is a heavy question to sit with. Are we more loyal to the passport in our pocket than the kingdom we were conveyed into? That shifts the perspective entirely.
It really does.
Before we go, we want to speak Pastor Adrian's favorite blessing over you from Numbers 6.2426. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. If today's message touched you, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube at God's Not Done One and follow on TikTok at Adrien Swansea and grab that free resource at the bottom of the latest videos. We'd love to keep walking this journey with you. Until next time, God bless you richly.